Okay, let me know when we're going live. Hi everyone, welcome. It's Jaidev here, and very happy and grateful to be with you today for the journey into the great science of life, Ayurveda. And any time that we teach or talk or endeavor to journey into Ayurveda, I always do so with the awareness that what we're dealing with is a living thing, a living science, not something that is necessarily dormant. In fact, we often refer to it as what's known as the Ayurveda. And in this class today, in the time we have here, there'll be a lot of perhaps terms, Sanskrit terms that you're not familiar with. Some of you may be, others not so much. And the idea is not so much to remember everything, but really what I want to endeavor to do is just like paint a picture for you. And perhaps like light bulbs will go off, and that our understanding of ourselves and of life and of nature and reality will gain great clarity, and will hopefully gain great inspiration. So when we talk about Ayurveda, we often talk about it in the context of the Ayurvedya. And what that means is what it infers is the vidya is like a living energy, and the Ayurveda is kind of the codified version of that living energy. And so anytime that we're discussing and journeying into the science and the art of Ayurveda, I'm always endeavoring to be aware, and that my job is to be a good vehicle for the Ayurveda, for the living energy of this knowledge and these teachings. And so with that, let us begin our journey into this Ayurveda. And some of you may be very familiar with it. Some of you not at all, and perhaps many in between. And all of that is just fine, because I think the way we're going to go into this today is going to have a freshness to it. And I always want my job is to be also the best student, not only the teacher in this case. As I'm always, every time I'm going into this teaching, I want to be learning as well and discovering as well. Because on one hand it's extremely simple, and on the other hand it's infinitely profound, and you can study it and contemplate it for a lifetime, and you'll never get to the end. And so it's so simple that I've taught it to my son for many years. He's now 13, but he's been learning basic principles of Ayurveda his whole life. It's just infused itself into our whole lifestyle and into our household, how we cook, how we have our routines in the day, the type of herbs we take every day. It really permeates every aspect of life, and not in like some difficult way, but in a way that's just like, yeah, it makes sense. It's easy. Life is much better. When you learn Ayurveda, my experience is, and I know it's the experience of many others, as I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people with learning and practicing Ayurveda, is that it's very much feels like you were paddling upstream, but didn't even realize it. And then all of a sudden you can turn the boat around and you start to flow downstream, and things get so much easier in terms of your health, your vitality, your understanding of your mind and your body. It's really a tremendous science, and it's a very, very old science. It's thousands of years old. Diets come and go. All sorts of trends in terms of health and so forth come and go. Ayurveda has been around for now easily 5,000 years, and it's just as healthy and perhaps more vital than ever before, or that it has been in such a long time. With the renaissance of yoga, Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. And so when you marry those two together, Ayurveda is the healing side of yoga. Yoga is the spiritual side of Ayurveda. So even when yogic practices are being used within a healing context, it's starting to get in towards the realm of Ayurveda, if it's done well. And so there's no one particular Ayurvedic diet. There's not any one particular Ayurvedic herb. Although sometimes we say that this is an Ayurvedic restaurant or this is an Ayurvedic herb. Often what that's referring to is one of two things or both. Either it's the food is being prepared or the herb is being administered using Ayurvedic principles. That would be the most purest version of that. But sometimes it's an herb or a type of food or recipe that comes out of the Ayurvedic culture, which was nurtured from the subcontinent of Mother India. And so sometimes we have Indian herbs like ashwagandha, shatavari, brahmi, that we would say are Ayurvedic herbs. Well, in essence, yes, but also they're not necessarily more Ayurvedic than the dandelion leaf that's currently growing in your backyard if you're in the northern hemisphere where it's springtime right now. So when the springtime hits and dandelion is starting to pop everywhere, it's a sign that you should go ahead and have some dandelion tea. Last night we took dandelion leaves, bought them at our co-op here, and then we saute them and we put lemon juice on them, and then we add some honey and a little bit of salt, and delicious. But it's perfect for the springtime because it's antidoting the energies and the qualities that come up, that arise in the spring. And those simple things are Ayurvedic. The way of thinking about things, the way of understanding energy, and the way of understanding the principles of nature. And so therefore, what changes our trends and diets, and we live in different places, and we go through different periods of our lives. What doesn't change is the principles of nature, the laws of nature. And Ayurveda is largely an exploration of the principles of nature, the laws of nature. And then how do we apply them to our lives so that we can live more happily and more healthy? We have better vitality. And that's what, when I was kind of intuitively tapping into what I wanted, which direction do I want to go into this today with you in this science of life, I really felt very much that I wanted to go into the exploration of those principles at their deepest level, at least from the context of Ayurveda. And that's what we're going to do today. Sometimes we'll do these classes and we'll focus on herbs, or we'll focus on constitution and body type, and we'll tap into that. But today what I want to do with you is I want to go into the deeper foundation that makes all of that stuff, the herbs, the food, etc., and all the things that we use to keep our minds clear and healthy and keep our body strong and vital. Because the principles of Ayurveda can be used if a person is not well, is sick. The principles of Ayurveda are tremendous for helping to bring that person back into balance. And it's not anti-anything. It's not anti-modern medicine. It's not anti-any other system. The principles of Ayurveda can be pretty much integrated into anything and everything, and then can improve whatever systems that you're currently using. And so for a person who is healthy, those same exact principles are the principles we use to keep ourselves healthy. Just like last night when we made some dandelion greens to go with our dinner, it's a perfect springtime remedy to keep ourselves healthy for the long term. And that's just one little simple idea about the types of herbs that we take, which they change throughout the year, which I'm going to teach you about that. In those of you who have taken our complete course of Ayurveda know very much. It starts with this deep philosophy, but then it goes into understanding the elements, which then goes into understanding how to apply those elements to understand your unique body and mind. And then once you understand your unique body and mind, which is, by the way, different than every other single person's body and mind, then you understand which herbs, which types of things and foods and medicines are going to be best for you to either bring yourself into greater balance, or if you have great balance, to bring yourself in, to give yourself a type of lifestyle or regimen to keep you healthy for the long term. And that's how powerful it is. And so what we're going to explore, though, today is the foundational principles underneath all of that. Because when you understand the science underneath all of it, then it gives a tremendous depth to what it is that you're doing. It's beautiful and it's fun to explore the foods and the herbs and all of that. But the foods and the herbs and how we use them and why we use them are given depth and substance when we have the deeper understanding, the deeper philosophy that's underneath it. Otherwise, it's fine, but is your context going to be big enough to have a long-term consistency with it? So that's what I want to go into you with today, the stuff that I really love, and that I think you'll find is very, very cool and very inspiring. My journey with Ayurveda began as a teenager when I became sick myself. And as a teenager, around 15, 16 years old, I developed 3 large ulcers in the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestines. Very, very painful if any of you have experienced that. And I went from, at that point, went from doctor to doctor. I didn't know anything about Ayurveda or anything like that. And the first doctor they didn't know what was going on. They gave me painkillers. That made it worse, of course. And then eventually they did the operation, I can't remember what it's called, where they actually stuck the camera down my throat to take pictures into the digestive tract because they suspected there was ulcers. But he's like, oh, he's so young, da-da-da-da-da. Why would he have ulcers? And they took pictures, and there they discovered there was 3 large duodenal ulcers, which were tremendously painful when they acted up. I'd have to go to the emergency room. They'd have to neutralize the acid. And then they gave me the purple pill, and that would, basically keep the symptoms at bay, but it wouldn't make the problem go away. If I ate the wrong thing, it'd be incredibly painful. And so I became very determined to figure out how to really heal this thing. That led me to yoga. That led me to Ayurveda. I remember I visited a Chinese medicine doctor along this journey, and something he said to me really stuck with me. He said, when we'll know that you've really healed this thing? He said, when you're really not thinking much about your digestion anymore. And in retrospect, he was right. Of course, I think about my digestion in a proactive way, but I don't think of it in a worried way. And at that point in time, it was always that case. I always had to be worried about it because it felt like, when those things act up, it feels like somebody's cutting at you with a knife inside. It's tremendously painful. And so anyhow, that, to make a longer story shorter, that led me to Ayurveda, originally from my teacher, and over the years I've learned from many great teachers that Ayurveda is what brought me out to where I live now in Nevada City, California. I went to school out here many years ago, and then I worked in the clinic there at the Ayurveda school here for many years. I ran their Panchakarma Center for some time, and I directed the clinic there. And eventually realized that my real dharma is with teaching this stuff and teaching Ayurveda and teaching yoga. And that's what I spend the vast majority of my time doing now for the last many years. I don't know how long it's been. And I love it so much, and I'm so grateful for it. And it's helped my life so much that I'm always inspired to share it with others. As I mentioned, it's now permeated, everything, to where I'm often not thinking Ayurveda because it's like once you learn it, it's hard not to think Ayurvedically. It just makes so much sense. It's so intuitive to human nature because it is basic principles of life. And these principles of Ayurveda were discovered by great sages in India that in very deep states of meditative awareness. And the entire backbone of this science of life, Ayus is life, and Veda is knowledge or science. So that's Ayurveda. We translate as the science of life. And the goal of Ayurveda is to generate what we call perfect health. And the Sanskrit term for that is swastha. And that's very specific what that is and how we define it and how we understand it. It's not simply like the absence of symptoms, but in the Ayurvedic context, when we're talking swastha, we're talking about an actual, it has to do with not only the body, it has to do with the fulfillment of the mind, the contentment of the mind, it has to do with a person who is living with great meaning and purpose. They're aligned with their dharma, what they came here to do. And we understand and we realize that all of that is intimately intertwined to the health of your body and to the health of your mind. And your mind and your body are intertwined. They're not separate things, of course. We know that, if your blood sugar drops, it can feel like your world is falling apart and your stress levels go high. But then you just eat lunch and everything seems to be a whole lot better. So the mind and the body, the blood is part of the mind, the muscles are part of the mind, your fat tissue is part of the mind. And part of the glory and the beauty and the wisdom of Ayurveda is that it has such deep insights into the human nature, into not only the physical levels of the human nature, but the subtle levels of the human nature. And without being able to understand your subtle nature and how the mind operates and how the life force that animates the body, the prana, the intelligence that causes everything to work, what is the nature of life force of what we call prana in Ayurveda and yoga, what in the Chinese system they call qi, your life force. And without understanding the nature of life force, it's very difficult to have a comprehensive understanding of your health and your vitality and your well-being, because everything first begins at its subtle nature. And so if we're only working at the level of the physical tissue layers and the physical organs, and then the fluctuations of the mind, the most superficial parts of the mind, we're working at the most dense and surface layer of the human vehicle, of the human being, because your human body and mind is very much like an organism. It is an organism. It's a biological organism of which you're traveling in for the time being. But you're not traveling in it infinitely, are you? One of these days, you and I both, we're going to leave this body. That life force of ours is going to leave the body. And so our health and our well-being isn't simply about just creating, vitality so that we can just then one day shed the body. But we need the vitality here to be able to fulfill our purpose and to first of all, have a sense of purpose. When you have a sense of purpose, then you'll naturally begin to fulfill the purpose. And the purpose of life and of your life can only be known really to you. And it's not something that you or I can go out and finding your purpose, but rather is that when your mind becomes clear and the vital energy in the body becomes alive, you won't have to find a purpose. It will become crystal clear to you, because you are everything about it. The intelligence that animates your being, which we call prana, life force, chi, is the intelligence of nature. It's the same thing that is rotating the earth, the same thing that generated you and grew you in your mother's womb, that moved you out of your mother's womb at the precise moment of time that was appropriate to put your unique life in motion so you would meet the right people and the right circumstances and have the right opportunities so that you can get to where you've gone to now. You have even the right obstacles and the right challenges and the right pain so that you can grow into what you actually are. Because they say in Ayurveda there's 3 root causes of disease. The first is misuse of the senses. And they say that it's poetically translated from the Ayurvedic text as the unwholesome conjunction of the sense organs with the objects of their affection. The unwholesome conjunction of the sense organs with the objects of their affection. Beautiful, no? Misuse of your senses. The second root cause of disease is called crimes against wisdom, is how they usually translate it, and that's kind of a literal translation. Really, what it means is you have your intellect is you have a innate wisdom within you, knowing you shouldn't do something and then doing it anyways is kind of what that is, the second root cause of disease. And the third is parinam, which is time and motion. It doesn't mean time in necessarily a linear sense, but time in the inner biological sense, meaning the more active your mind is, the quicker you age. The more stressed out you are, the quicker you age. And that's the third root cause of disease. And so Ayurveda goes at each one of these very specifically. But it says even beyond those 3 root causes of disease, there's one, what they call like primordial cause of all disease. And that one is that you've forgotten your true nature. You've forgotten your true nature. You and I have forgotten what we really are at the nucleus of our being. Deep, deep, deep within us, the true nature of what you are. And from that context, we're all in this realm of dis-ease. We're all in this realm of healing and coming back into our established in our real nature of what we really are. And the more you can get that nucleus of you, of what you really are, and the yogis say what you really are, if we want to try to put a semantics around it, they say there's 3 primary qualities that vibrates at the center of all beings. And number 1 is love. Number 2 is energy, life force. And number 3 is intelligence. They call that prana, tejas, ojas, or satchitananda. And so you have pure energy at the center of the being. There's pure intelligence at the center of the being. And there's supreme love at the center, unadulterated love at the center of the being. And our job as human beings, and the job of Ayurveda and yoga, is to cause the conditions for the mind and the body to be able to emanate and express the true nature of what you really are. Life, light, and love. Pure energy, pure intelligence, and supreme love. And when those 3 primary things start to become active in the being, active in the vehicle, and be able to express themselves organically through your presence, through your eyes, through your inner awareness, through your heart, through your consciousness, then, as I mentioned, you don't have to find a purpose. You won't be able to avoid it. And because you're uniquely designed, perfectly designed. All your talents that you have, which you have, great talents. All your neuroses you have and I have. We have our neuroses, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. All those are perfect. The job isn't necessarily to get rid of the neuroses, but it's to magnify the strengths so that the neuroses that we may have and may be running and still kind of overpowering our better intelligence, overpowering our better energy, overpowering our deeper love. We want to take the electricity away from that stuff. And it can be mental neuroses, it can be physical symptoms, etc., etc. But what we want to do is to strengthen the assets that we have and reduce the liabilities, and that's the heart of Ayurveda. So, take a deep inhale and exhale. take your index finger to your thumb like that. That's called a Gyan Mudra, the Great Wisdom Mudra. And then inhale deep. Palms are facing up. And exhale. Now close your eyes for a moment. And exhale. Just a few more times. Your heart lifted up, your chin slightly in. The gaze goes to the third eye between the two eyebrows. And then deeply inhale. And suspend the breath in for a moment. Relax the upper body with the breath suspended in. And see if you can just come into a space of relative stillness. And exhale. Again, inhale. And exhale. So what we're going to dive into here is what's classically known as Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy, one of the great schools of yoga and Ayurveda. And it's really the backbone of Ayurveda and yoga. And what this is describing is essentially the architecture of the universe, but also the architecture of the human being, the human organism. And those two things are the same. The architecture of the creation and the architecture of you are the same architecture, microcosm and macrocosm. And so this Sankhya describes both simultaneously. And we're going to go back and forth in between. We're not going to cover all the details of this. It's going to come up here on your, you can bring it up, Aki. It's going to come up so you can see it, and then I'll point out some certain things as we're going through it, and then we'll follow up. We'll send you an email sometime in the next day or two, where we'll actually send you the PDF of this so you can have it. And for those of you who end up joining in the complete course of Ayurveda, this is we'll go very deep into this in the first two modules. We'll go deep into it today too, though, and so is it up for them? Great. And so often we just refer to the journey of consciousness into form. This is describing. This is how we feel really held, is to understand and feel nurtured, is to understand what is going on here. We need not recreate the wheel. There is great wisdom that has been passed on over time. Teacher to student through great texts that have described to us. And these, of course, aren't ultimate. There's no map or model that can ultimately describe the nature of reality, because that's beyond the beyond. Paramatma is what you are, is beyond any description. It's ineffable. However, these are beautiful maps that will point you in the direction. They're models that allow us to actually have experience of what we really are. The teachings give you structure and give you directionality, so that then through your personal experience you can have deep understanding of that, because it's your experience that catalyzes the knowledge that we have into wisdom. And so that's what we make sure with all our practice, with all the work we do, with all our courses, that they're experiential in nature, because we're not trying to convince anyone to believe anything. We're saying, consider this. Now consider looking at it this way. Now consider this. Now try this. Now see if that works. Now see if this does. And the practices and the teachings of Ayurveda and yoga are undeniable, because they work via our experience. There's nothing we have to blindly believe. And so if you would take a look at this, and so from the very top of this, and I have it here with me as well, at the very top of this, you have the most subtle aspects of nature, down to the very bottom of this, where it gets all the way to your mouth, hands, feet, sex organ, anus. You have the most dense layers of nature. And as I mentioned, we're both simultaneously describing the architecture of the universe as well as the architecture of the human being. But to make it more tangible and real, let's focus on the human being primarily, and knowing that we're a part of that. And so what you have at the top is, first you can see that mandala in the background is representing. This is something I created, my kind of interpretation of the Sankhya system. that I created some years ago. And that yantra, that mandala in the background, is essentially representing the supreme energy, supreme being, whatever it is that is engineering this entire creation, whatever it is that is generating the intelligence. What is it that's beating your heart? What is it that digests your food? How do like bone cells know to choose calcium, whereas like muscle cells know to choose protein? Like how does that? Are you making those decisions? What is it that's causing your heart to beat right now? There's literally quadrillions of things happening in your body at all times, of which you control almost none. You control one: voluntary muscle movement. My hand lifts up like that. Voluntary muscle movement. If I take an inhale like this, voluntary muscle movement. The other quadrillion, they used to think it was trillions. Now they know it's quadrillions of physiological things that are happening at all times in your body are happening via what we normally would say that your autonomic nervous functions. But what is even behind that? There is some sort of intelligence that is animating all of this. What is it that makes the sun rise in the morning and set? We can depend on that mathematically. There's a perfection that happens in this. And this is what this is being unpacked here. And so where you see at the top, Purusha, and again, please don't worry. If anything goes over your head, no big deal. Like, this is just to give you a sense of, whoa, yes, light bulbs, perhaps. Epiphanies, perhaps, but what's not required for that is you to remember all the terms and semantics and every individual concept, but rather let's see if we can come away with like a big picture, to where then by the end of it we see, this is why we're using herbs like this. This is why we're using food like this. This is why we get up in this such a way and what we do before we go to bed. Now it's making senses. Now here's all the circuitry that's underneath all the principles that then gets applied via the practical things in our lives. So on the top left you have Purush. In the top left here you have Purush. And Purush is like pure consciousness. Purush literally means like Pura is like a town or city, and Isha is refers to the that which dwells within the city of your senses. It's the unadulterated pure consciousness. It has no gender, it has no race, it has no particular qualities. It's unadulterated awareness. It's just the observing awareness. Now take it to the macrocosm, and the entire creation has the Purush, that is the observing awareness of life. Incredible. Now, within you, that Purush they call the Atma, is the soul, the pure, unadulterated consciousness. And on to the right, that's the male principle, and to the right is the female principle, is Prakriti. And Prakriti is it's defined literally. What the word means is she who wishes to become many. She is the divine, she is the Mother Nature, but not just Mother Nature in the terms of like the trees and the animals, that too, but also she is the mother of the entire creation, of the universe. She is what gives form to the pure consciousness. So you can feel inside of you, there's an indwelling pure consciousness. There's an indwelling awareness. But then you're given a form. You're giving a body, and you have a shape to your face, and you have a particular unique body type. Or if you look at, perhaps you're somewhere where you can look out the window and you can see a beautiful tree. And you can sense that tree has an energy to it. It is a living being. It has an energy, a consciousness inside of it. It's perhaps slightly different than a human consciousness. It's a plant consciousness, but there's a consciousness. But then that tree has a form. That form and that beauty is Prakriti, the female principle. And we call Prakriti, she is the one, the mother, the one that wishes to become many. That's why and so all of this, essentially the rest of all the different elements here as we go down Mahat, Ahamkara, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and we might not cover them all here today, because for our purposes today, I just want to give you something to not to go too philosophical, too intellectual. But what all of this is describing is really now Prakriti. How does that one diversify into now life? And how do we understand the principles within the realm of nature, within the realm of Mother Nature? And so that one who wishes to become many is why there's such a tremendous drive to procreate on our planet, with not only us human beings who have a tremendous drive to procreate, and if that energy is not harnessed, it can move us in unfortunate or non-dharmic directions. If it's harnessed, it's one of the most beautiful life experiences that we have. And if it's only done in sexual fashion, that's very limited. But then we realize that actually nature wants us to create things, and so create pieces of art, to create businesses, to create cozy homes, to create. So we understand at the most fundamental levels that our health and our vitality and our happiness and our contentment in our minds rests upon the foundation of us being creative people, of us creating things, and particularly creating things that are in line with what we're here to do. And that could be as big of a project as creating a business around yogic teachings like we do here, or like my wife does, creating her musical albums and her concert tours and all of that. No doubt she's born to do that. She's got the right I've never met anyone who can sing like she can sing. I can't do nothing anywhere in the same universe as what she can do. Even if I wanted to be like a musician like that, I'm not made like that. Just like she's not made like me. So it's create in that big sense, but also, like I mentioned, small sense, like create coziness in your homes. Is your home like a work of art? My teacher used to always say, God lives in cozy homes. And so you make cozy, you use your creativity to make your home cozy. You use creativity to make your breakfast this morning beautiful. And when you put actual creative energy into it, and now it's coming from the context of this to where we're understanding that at deep levels of nature, of creation, what is going to be important for me to maintain health and vitality and contentment and a sense of meaning in my life is that I'm applying my creativity in important ways, in useful ways. Because you will be creative no matter what. Because in order, for instance, for a person to maintain anxiety, your creativity has to be used to be, and that's happening subconsciously, not consciously, but nevertheless, the energy of creativity is being utilized to maintain anxiousness. The creativity is being used to maintain depression. Creativity is being used to maintain passive-aggressive tendencies, and so forth, and so on. And so part of our journey here with Ayurveda is starting to change the conditions of the life force environment so that our creativity starts to be used for more useful things that are going to give us enjoyment in our lives. Because ultimately, the purpose of life is to enjoy life and to find joy in life, no matter what it is that's going on, no matter if it's painful or if it's pleasurable, that we can find joy in both directions. Because what would life be without pain? What would life be without sadness? It'd be rather dry. Pain gives you sometimes your most precious things, makes you love the deepest. And so how is our creative energy being utilized, either consciously or unconsciously? Are you with me? So I just want you to think about that for a moment, and maybe take a sip of water. I certainly need to. And think about, how is creativity being used in my life in both positive fashion, but also in a negative fashion, unconscious to me. It takes creativity to do anything. And as long as you're in the human body, you will be creative. But how is your creativity being used? And that's very important. That's the lesson of Prakriti, one of the great lessons of Prakriti. In fact, that's why Ayurveda would say, like for instance, there's some diseases that would be more common in for instance, women who get to a certain age and never have children, like endometriosis. But that's not, that. So Ayurveda would say that actually to antidote that is not necessarily, not everybody's dharma is to have children, but how are you using your creative energy in a dharmic fashion, in a purposeful fashion, in a way where that's why they always say follow the bliss, but to actually have sense of what the bliss is takes tremendous work. But we would be creative in a way. What are we birthing in our lives that is going to be useful to life? When someone writes a great song, it uplifts all of life. When someone writes a great book, it uplifts all of life. When someone makes their home cozy, it has a positive effect on all of life. When someone cooks a beautiful meal, it adds energy to life. And how are you adding energy to life? Consistently. And like, how does every day, when he produces puts his creative energy into like a video and a webcast here, and it's adding to life. It's adding. And so how are we using our creativity? That's the lesson of each one of these elements is going to essentially asking you, it's like, what does Prakriti want from you to create things? What does Purush want you? Pure consciousness. What does that Purush want of you? To become a reflection of pure consciousness as quickly as possible. Catch-22, you can't do it. You can't rush to be as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible, you got to relax and enjoy and have fun and be creative. Be yourself. Figure out how to love really, I hope you're liking it. I hope this is making sense and connecting for you. So let's go down a level. Mahat is the great, and Mahat means literally the great, but what it infers, like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma just literally, that wasn't his actual name. That was a revered title that the people of India just organically gave him, because this is in their language. Mahatma means great soul. Atma, which is the Purush, when it's within the context of a human being. And Mahat is the great, so the great soul, as they say, Mahatma. There's a title they gave him out of inspiration. So Mahat, what it means in this context is the great intelligence of creation. It includes all the principles, all the laws of nature, both in the physical and the subtle. Physical would be the laws of physics, for instance, and subtle would be the laws of karma and dharma. And the Mahat, as it exists within the human being, is called the Buddhi, which is the intelligence of the intellect, the wisdom of the intellect. So here's something that is important to know and understand, and that they understand and acknowledge, and it's fundamental to their understanding of human life in the Orient, is that within every human being is the pure intelligence. And that if the environments are tuned properly, if you are given the proper life force conditions for yourself, and the mind is made clear, and the body is given the right type of vitality. When we're talking vitality in that Ayurvedic sense, we're not just talking about physical vitality, but we're talking about the vitality that makes your organs operate well, and that makes your mind come into contentment. It's an energy, it's like an electromagnetism that holds the psyche in a field of contentment, and it causes your organs and your tissue layers to operate well and efficiently and with great balance. And that energy of vitality is the word for that is ojas, and ojas is considered the materialization of love itself. And so here we go back into those pure intelligence, pure life, pure energy, and pure love, to get those things to express themselves easily from the nucleus of you out into the presence of you and into your life is the heart of Ayurveda and yoga. And so Mahat, the great principles of life, is what governs all things. So a lot of what we learn in Ayurveda, and which I hope you'll join in for the complete course of Ayurveda, is really the study of Prakriti Mahat. understanding what are the laws of nature, what are the principles of nature, and how do I come into alignment with them. Because if I understand that I'm created a unique way with primarily fire energy, with secondarily water and earth energy, and tertiary air and ether energy, then I need to know that when the springtime hits, earth and water are high. And so I already have a lot of earth and water, so I have to make sure that I apply the right type of qualities back into me with herbs and with food so that I'm balancing the organism so that I don't go out of balance, excessive in any way. And when the summer comes around and I know I've got a lot of fire energy, and then if I'm throwing fire on top of fire via food or even herbs, then my fire is going to overflow and explode, and it's going to cause me either mental or physical imbalance. And if that's happening over and over and over, year after year after year, that's how we generate deeper and deeper and deeper levels of disease. And the deeper and the more, the further that pathology continues or grows, the more difficult it is to bring it back into balance. So we want to be proactive in making sure that we're staying in the flow of nature. When winter comes around and air and ether elements predominate, we all need to make sure that we're applying the qualities that antidote that, so that we're bringing more warmth into our organism, that we're applying more moisture into the organism with food and with herbs. And when we get into these simple habits of understanding the qualities of the seasons, the qualities of life, the qualities of our unique constitution of mind and body, whereas, for instance, my wife, she's primarily fire, but then secondarily air and ether. So she has a different type of makeup than I have. So when she is under stress, she's going to respond very differently than when I'm under stress, where I have fire, but then secondarily earth and water. So when you understand this, you start to understand yourself. You also start to understand other folks. And I'll train you in the Ayurveda course, just by looking at folks, you'll start to understand what their constitution is. A person who knows Ayurveda well can look at me pretty quickly, see that this guy's a Pitta Kapha. Now, I can look at most everyone and know pretty quickly, what is their constitution. And it's not that difficult once you know. And that's all under the realm of Mahat. And so if we skip down further into this, and again, we'll spend a ton of time on this in the full course if you if this is all resonating and you want to journey deeper into it. But if you go further down there, you see, and all of this is going from the super subtle, whereas like Purusha, Prakriti, down into Mahat Ahamkar is the I former. It's what now gives you individuation. It's what gives you your sense of you, I, me. This is me, this is not me. This is mine, that is not mine. And that gives you a sense of I-ness. And that's when all these principles start to then become recognized and realized and experienced within the individual, within you. You have a unique being, a unique personality. Your nervous system is wired a specific way. And so the types of herbs that are perfect for me are not necessarily the types of herbs and foods that are perfect for you. And so in order to truly have great health and vitality, we need to understand how to figure that out, hence the Ayurveda. And so then it gets into what we call the 5 great elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. You with me? You may only slightly be with me. This is very... so for instance, we have our big immersion next week, and I teach this stuff every immersion. We've been doing it for close to a decade, and it never gets old because you're always going deeper into this. So this is not I don't mean to overwhelm you and insinuate that you could need to understand all of this just today. It's impossible. This is such a deep science that it's I don't fully, I've sat with this for, many, many, many years. And still I'm going deeper into it. And so you can understand it, in one sitting on a surface level, but then to actually truly understand it takes a lot of time. And that's why it's beautiful. And so now you're getting into, we're looking at the elemental level of life, and that they say now kind of reboot here and focus. Take an inhale. And then exhale. So all things in life are made up of 5 primary things: earth, water, fire, air, and space, and ether. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. And your body and mind are made up of those 5 things. Even this microphone stand is made up of those 5 things, but in different proportions. As I mentioned, I have primarily fire, secondarily earth and water, tertiary air and ether. You have a unique makeup, and even that's a very generalization, because there's other people with primary fire, secondary water, earth that are very much different than I. And so it's relative, but it's also is a generalization. And there's as many different unique combinations of these things as there are beings. And so what we start to understand is that as long as you're in the human body, you have to deal with those 5 things: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And the earth and water can either give you great vitality and stability and strength, or that same earth and water can give you heaviness, obesity, depression, and anything in between. Air and ether, on the other side, can give you great enthusiasm for life, energy, lightness of being, or they can give you anxiousness, worry, doubt, fear, anemia, fatigue, and everything in between. So any sort of disorder that happens in life, any sort of symptoms that we may have physically, mentally, what we're going to look at from the Ayurvedic context is we're going to look at it from the context of those 5 elements, which is at once both very simple, but also very sophisticated. And it's a way to simplify what's going on and understand it much more easily than it would be to understand it from, for instance, like biochemistry. And so if you can understand it this way, then you can start to apply the right qualities to it using food, using herbs, using different lifestyle practices. And so out of those 5 elements come all of our senses. And so out of earth comes the sense of smell. Out of water comes the sense of taste. Out of fire comes the sense of vision. Out of air comes tactile perception, touch. And out of ether, space, akasha, is the most subtle element, is sound, vibration. And so then you have your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your skin, and what did I miss? The nose and the tongue. And so if you really just think of it like this, now check it out. All the energy comes into you via your 5 senses. All the information, photons in light in terms of vision, sound current, the ears, taste from the saliva in the mouth, tactile perception, all that is information that is coming into the organism via the 5 senses. Those 5 senses are ruled by those 5 elements. And then that gets metabolized within the organism, within your being, and that metabolization or digestion of life experience, not just only digestion of food, including that, but not only, but it's also digestion of all sensations, all experiences, is going to be dependent on what is the conditions, the inner conditions of the life force and the digestive power. And so what Ayurveda is doing for you, perhaps more than anything else, is developing great digestive power, both physically and mentally. Because I can have a very difficult experience happen in my life. And if I have great mental digestive strength, then I can metabolize it and extract the nutrient of that experience and eliminate out the waste. Just like if I'm going to eat an apple, I can extract the nutrient out of that if I have good digestive fire and eliminate out the waste. So we work at both levels, both the subtle mental level and the physical level, because we understand that all disease begins at digestion. It begins in the body at digestion. It begins at the mind at digestion. And so say for, like, God forbid, you lose a family member close to you. And whether or not that ends up ultimately, of course it's going to be painful. Of course it's going to be tremendous grief and sadness. But then ultimately, what's the net experience that comes out of that? What's the net energy that comes out of it? Does it make you fall deeper in love? Does it make you have even more conviction and commitment to what you're here to do? Is that how that person's life ends up serving you? Or does it throw us into a cycle of despair and depression? Same experience, two different results. That will depend on the inner digestive power of the being. That's what Ayurveda and yoga are developing. And that's everything. And so if I have no digestive power in the body, it's very difficult to have digestive power of the mind. So we need both. So the first thing we always do with working with people with Ayurveda is, number one, we work with you on the digestive fire of the body. And we start getting the right herbs in the system. We start, refining how we're eating. How you eat is considered even more important than what you eat in Ayurveda. So it's putting consciousness around that and putting rhythm around that. And then, all right, also, what is it that we're eating? And are we shifting properly with the seasons? And then are we understanding what our unique constitution is, and then overlaying that, which may seem complicated, and at first it will feel complicated, but after a while it becomes very simple and very easy, because anytime you're learning something new, it's a little clumsy at first, but then you realize, this is profound. And so learning Ayurveda is a process, but right out the gate it becomes powerful. And so then how you metabolize life, then you express back out via what they call the 5 organs of behavior, which is right at the bottom, the very bottom. Now we're at the most dense layer of the human organism and of life: the mouth, the hands, the feet, the sex organ, and the anus. Those are called the 5 organs of action or behavior. So think about it. Every experience is happening to you. That experience is being metabolized, and then you're projecting yourself back into life via your behavior and your actions. Your mouth, what you're saying, your tongue, your feet. This is poetic science, not to be taken too literally. Your feet is how you mobilize in the world and where you're going, how you're moving, what direction are you taking. Your hands are what you're creating and what you're holding in the world and how you're working in the world. The sex organ is what you're creating in the world. The rectum, anus, is what you're eliminating out, to be able to eliminate out the waste. Something devastating happens. There's nutrient in that experience, or something tremendously painful happens. There's nutrients in that experience, and there's also waste product. And if the waste product isn't eliminated, we'll end up becoming depressed or anxious or angry chronically. There's nothing wrong with being sad or being angry or having some worries and doubts. But when it becomes chronic and habitual, there is something wrong with that. It's then enters the realm of dis-ease. And so we want to make sure that we have the type of energy and vitality and digestive power to actually, both in terms of food and our bodies, to have great digestive health, in terms of our mind and emotions, to be able to have great digestive health. And those are the 2 areas we always start with. And what we start with in the complete course of Ayurveda is how we work with people is to strengthen the digestive power of the body, because if you can't digest anything at the gut level, then you can't digest anything at the cellular level, and then the body becomes filled with toxicity. And when the body becomes filled with toxicity, it causes disruption in the natural intelligence. That's called amma in Ayurveda, is the toxicity that cloaks the tissues and organs of the body, that then distorts the natural intelligence. Because remember, you have intelligent life force beating the heart, causing all the organs to operate efficiently, keeping the mind in a space of content, because the natural state of the mind is clarity and content. But when it gets filled with amma, toxicity, then it becomes distorted, and now the body's not working quite right, and the mind loses its natural content, and we fall out of balance. And when we fall out of balance, it's very difficult to live with sense of purpose and sense of meaning. You see what I'm saying? So this is the foundation of the spiritual life, is the healthy life, not religious, but spiritual. And so when those two things are, you generate great digestive power in the body using the right herbs, using the right foods, and first and foremost, though, understanding the principles. Because if you just jump into, all right, what herb do I take, what food do I take, and you don't understand the principles, you're not going to stay with it long enough to make tremendous impact. And that's why first I always start with the principles, with the philosophy, with the teachings, and then, because that's the backbone, that's the foundation that everything rests upon. And then from there we go into the actual how do we implement this with the practices, yogic practices, food practices, herbal practices, lifestyle practices, how we're getting up in the morning, what do we do first thing, what do we do right before we go to bed to make sure we get deep, restful sleep, and what are we doing to make sure that the mind is staying clear, and what are we doing daily to make sure the digestive fire is staying strong. And when you have good digestive fire, then your vitality will start to strengthen, because then you can actually convert the potential energy, which is the food, the herbs, etc., into actual energy, which becomes vitality, ojas. Making sense for you? And so that's why this, in any Ayurvedic school, I always start by teaching Sankhya philosophy. Sang comes from the word sat, which means truth. And kya means to explore. And so what this really means is to explore the truth, to explore reality. Isn't it beautiful? I love this so much. And we didn't just kind of skim the surface of it. But I always come back to that as like, what does Prakriti want you to do? She wants you to create things. What does Purush want you to do? These are the male-female principles. And it's like when the male and the female union occurs, that's when you generate Mahat, the great intelligence of life. And what does Mahat want of you? It wants you to be intelligent about things, but specifically specialize in whatever it is that you are good at and what you have a passion for and what you love. And do you see that you can take herbs till Armageddon? But if you're not connecting at this level, where you're not applying your intelligence to the dharmic things that you have come here to experience, if you're not applying your intelligence in that way, then it's only going to do so much, because your health and your vitality to a substantive extent relies on that deeper energetic connectivity. Is it making sense with you? Ahamkara, what is that ahamkara want? It wants you to identify. What is your sense of identity? What are you about? And then how big is your expansiveness and your understanding of what you are? And the bigger your expansiveness is, the greater your sense of identity will become. And as you'll learn in the first module of the complete course of Ayurveda, I call Ayurveda in this ahamkara medicine. And we didn't even get into ahamkara in this, because that's your sense of what you are. And if my sense of what I am is locked too deeply into the physical layers, into the realm of the material realm, then I'm going to have the conditions that create disease, suffering. But when my sense of what I am has deeper connectivity to the part of me that never dies and the part of me that does die, both, and then they blend and unite to become a beautiful life, a beautiful person, then what we have is a healthy sense of identity. And that's essential for our vitality and for our health. Even the health of the body, it's essential. It's beautiful, isn't it? So like in where we start in the complete course of Ayurveda is that, you see how it's science of life? There's no stones left unturned here. And so we unpack, like in the module 1 and module 2, we unpack this deep science, this Sankhya, and then it flows right into understanding the 5 elements. And when you understand the 5 elements, you're going to figure out, and we're going to guide you on how to figure out what is your unique constitution. What is your, what they call dosha? What is your unique mind-body type? And some people are more fiery people. Some people more earthy and watery people. Some people more air and ethery people. Ethery. And so when you understand that then has a profound impact on everything else. And it goes into then understanding the tissue layers of the body and how that the mind and the body are actually the same thing, that the body is actually part of the psyche, they're not separate. And that the tissue layers, the plasma, the blood, the muscles, the bone, the marrow, the fat tissue, the nerve tissue, and then ultimately your most refined tissue layer is your reproductive fluid, or egg in the female, semen in the man, on the physical level. And the energetic level, it's the creative energy, is the most refined and most important layer of the human being. I one time heard my teacher say is that all that death is, he says, your opportunity for creativity here has ended. Is very, very beautiful. And so the most refined, do you know how much energy it takes your body to create semen and egg and to produce the creative energy that is required to create another human being? And then that when that same creative energy is direct, because there's only so many human beings we want to create, right? My wife and I created one and we're done. But some people might want a couple more, maybe even a few more, but then not many after that. We got enough on the planet, don't we? And so that creative energy still needs to be utilized. And so what are you birthing in the life? And then we understand, though, that the plasma, has if you have good water element in the body, the plasma, the watery components, the saliva, the watery part of the saliva, even the milk that flows through the lactation ducts in a nursing mother, and all of the watery components that keeps you hydrated gives the mind, when it's well nourished, gives the mind satisfaction. When the blood is well nourished and healthy, it gives your psyche, your sense of psyche, energization and invigoration. Rasa rakta mamsa, when the muscle and skin are well nourished and healthy, it gives the psyche your sense of self, your ahamkara, your sense of what you are, great sense, self-confidence. And without self-confidence, you can't stay healthy. Your mind to stay healthy requires self-confidence. And then rasa rakta mamsa meda, fat tissue. Fat tissue, the effect of fat tissue on the psyche is sense of you feel nourished, you feel well loved, self-love. And so sometimes if we have an excessive amount of one tissue layer or a deficient amount of one tissue layer, it gives us insights into the imbalance of the organism. That's then also the imbalance of the psyche. And you see how we can get inside there. And certain herbs work specifically on the fat tissue. Certain herbs work specifically on the muscle, the bone, etc. Bone tissue, asti, gives you a sense of stature. You hold your head up high and your heart wide open. You feel your confidence. You have a sense of importance. You have a mission here in the world. But then maja, the brain tissue and the nerve tissue and the marrow, it gives, when you now running the energy of your life with a sense of purpose and a sense of consciousness, that will give the mind deep fulfillment. And when you have that deep fulfillment, then you'll use your most refined tissue, the shukra, the creative energy, the semen and the egg, in a way that is going to add to life. And that, my friends, will then give you ojas, as you're going to produce great vitality that brings your mind into a state of bliss. And that's the science of Ayurveda. And that's what the course does. It goes from the beginning, starting with Sankhya, into the 5-element theory, understanding then your constitution, then understanding all those 7 tissue layers, how they operate, where in your organism do you need to work a little bit. Where are you really strong? Where is your liabilities? And how do we increase your strengths and decrease your liabilities? And then from there, it'll show you, okay, here's how to do it. Here's how to apply that constitution and all the element theory that you learn into food. And then we go and apply those same principles into herbology. So you have, I can't remember what module, 6 or 7 on Ayurvedic herbalism. All the modules are on the page here for you that you can see. And then you go into lifestyle and how to use like self-massage, self-oil massage, and how to make sure you keep your digestion healthy. With little things like scraping your tongue every morning, like what do you do first thing in the morning to ignite the digestive power? And what do you do right before bed to make sure which herbs to take, pretty much all of us, to keep the digestive power healthy and all of that. And it's a very beautiful thing. It's the oldest course we've had. It's the first course I ever taught like this. First time I taught it, we wouldn't even have, our internet wasn't even good in the world yet to have videos. We were doing like teleseminars. And we've, over the time, evolved the course. And it holds up. It's the same stuff, but it's new and it's fresh and it's powerful. And if I want to invite you to join, we're opening the course today, and it's going to be open for a few days, and we're taking in new students of the complete course of Ayurveda. And for everyone who's attended this webcast, we're offering a real special deal. The regular price for it is $500 to get the complete course of Ayurveda normally. But if you go in now, it's only $295. So it's a really great deal. It's over $200 off. And there's also a payment plan. If you jump in, if you want to jump in, you can't do $295 right now. You can do 3 installments of $108, and you get full access to the course right away. So that means if you would pay $108 now, then the second a month later, and the third a month later, but you get full access right away. And if you get it, and for any reason you decide, no matter how you're paying, if you get it and any reason decide, this actually isn't for me, you just got to email our team within 60 days, a full 60 days, 2 months of purchase, and they'll send you full refund, 100%. So that's really cool. We do that with all our stuff because we want you to feel comfortable jumping in and feel like if you do it, then you find like, not for me, that you don't feel like you lost money or anything like that. So you can read testimonials from other people who have taken this course. There's literally thousands of people who have gone through this course. And the module 1's the living science of prana, going much deeper than we did today into that Sankhya philosophy. Module 2, the secrets of lifelong health. That's starting to get into your constitution, element theory. Module 3, the rooting out of disease. Module 4, the healthy and happy psyche, when you're going through all those tissue layers and how to balance them to make your mind happy and content. Module 5 is the way of yogic medicine, where you're now starting to understand how the yogis look at medicine. And Ayurveda looks at medicine, and that is that everything in life is medicine. Everything's good for someone, nothing's good for everyone. So how do I figure out what's good for me and what's good for my family? And will show you the principles, rasa, virya, vipak. And understanding that rasa, virya, vipak, and prabhav, how to use yogic medicine. And those same principles of yogic medicine you apply to both food and herbs, because essentially they're the same thing. Module 6, the Ayurvedic art of eating. So in Module 5, you learn the principles of yogic medicine, and then you're going to apply. And this is not for practitioners necessarily. Of course, we have lots and lots of practitioners who take this, but this is not to train you to become a practitioner. This is for everyday folks who want to apply this in their own lives and with their own families. If you're already a practitioner and you want to enhance that, and hallelujah, I think you'll love this, but it's not specifically for that. It's for anyone who wants to really learn this for their life. Ayurvedic art of eating, Module 7, Ayurvedic herbalism. Module 8 is the lifelong vitality. Now, how do you take all of this and set up a lifestyle system that will keep you healthy for the long term? And then there's 2 bonuses. If you get that course now, the first bonus is a class I taught. It's a very good class, I think. It's called Ayurvedic Secrets for Radiant Skin. So it's the skincare principles. I don't know if any of you followed me on Instagram, but yesterday I showed you, I unpacked these skincare products that I use, but that's not what that class is about. That class is about the principles of how to then apply it to skincare. The biggest organ in the body is the skin. So it's beauty care in the Ayurvedic context, because Ayurveda is all about beauty. It's not about actually changing changing what you look like, but it's about magnifying your natural beauty. And that's the real beauty. The real beauty comes when we're energizing the deep wisdom within us, the deep energy within us, so we start to glow. And that type of beauty is profound because it gets stronger as you grow older. Real beauty care needs to get stronger as you grow older. It doesn't deteriorate as we age. And that's the type of beauty we need, because if we're into the type of beauty that's going to go less and less and less, the older and older we get, that's too temporary. We want our beauty to be founded on the actual non-dying part of ourselves, and that becomes stronger and stronger and makes us glow brighter and brighter. It's a different type of beauty we'll have when we're 70, 80, right, than when we're 30 and 25. And that beauty of 70, 80 is far more magnetic. Bonus 2 is making herbal formulas. It's a whole class I taught on how to actually create herbal formulas using Ayurvedic principles. So if you like that kind of stuff, this is alchemy. This is really what that is Ayurvedic alchemy, using it with herbs. All of Ayurveda is alchemy. And then the third and final bonus, and I think it's the best, is you get the special student tuition to our big immersion we're having at the end of August in the Catskills of upstate New York. It's half off that immersion. And then you come, this is a yogic experience. It starts on the Wednesday and ends on the Sunday of the Labor Day weekend. And in terms of sheer transformative power, there's nothing like this that we do. It's the best, and it's fun, and it's amazing, and it's life-changing. So you'll get half off that immersion when you join the course. So those 3 bonuses, all the modules, you have immediate access. The course has 8 modules. It's providing you both video and audio, so you can sit and watch it, or you can download the audio. You can download the whole course so you don't have to rely on streaming. So if you're going to go somewhere where you're not going to have internet access, you want to fly in a plane and listen to it or watch it, you can do that very easily. If you like to listen to the modules while you're out walking the dog or hiking in the trail or whatever, or driving the kids to school, you can do that. What else? There's all these PDFs of like this that go along with it. There's action steps with each module that help you to digest and implement the teachings, and you have lifetime access to this. Okay, so if you get it now, but you can't begin right away, it'll be waiting for you whenever you're ready. You have, it's not like it just starts now. We'd like you to start now while the momentum is strong. But if you can't, you can get it while it's on sale for this really good deal. But you don't have to begin right away. So again, regular price is $500. If you get it right now, it's only $295, or you can use the payment plans. Just pay $108 now, then 2 more installments over the next 2 months. And it's super easy. It's easy to register. It just takes a moment. Even if you're not technologically savvy, it's super easy to use. We have a great team that if you have any issues, they'll just email our support team and they'll walk you through anything you need. And like I said, it's guaranteed. If you get it and you don't decide you don't want it, let us know within 60 days and we'll send you a whole refund. And that's it. It's a beautiful experience, a complete course of Ayurveda and on the science of life. And I'd love for you to jump in and join. And if you're not able to or not wanting to, I do hope that today's experience did ignite a little fire for you with Ayurveda and with just understanding life and can I take that principles of how am I being creative? How am I what is it that I'm here to be intelligent about specifically? How am I going to apply my intelligence uniquely? That'll give you prosperity. That'll give you energy. That'll give you great health even. And that'll give you fulfillment of the mind and live a life of meaning and purpose. And that's really the heart of all this stuff. So thank you so much for being a part of it. I enjoyed our time here. And please, would love to keep in touch and connect with me over on Instagram or Facebook, whatever you do. I'm JaiDave108 on Instagram. And thanks so much for being here today. I'm wishing you a great, great, beautiful day. Jump into the course. If you're going to jump in, it's only open. Registration's only open a few days, and then it closes and the sale ends as well. And so would love to have you a part of that. click the button to join in, and that'll take you right over to the registration page. Just takes a moment. And love you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. And I'll see you real soon, hopefully right in the course very soon. Satnam.
The Course of Ayurveda was a wonderful teaching for me, to teach me about my particular body type, my doshas, if you will.
The most impactful part of the complete Course of Ayurveda for me was really going in depth with the doshas and then the tattvas. He goes to another level, bringing in that yogic philosophy as well.
I'm coming more from a perspective of acupuncture, Chinese medicine. So these are new concepts for me, and I like to be challenged intellectually as well.
Yeah, the teachings in the complete Course of Ayurveda informed me about myself, gave me a deeper understanding and a deeper love for who I am, how I'm made, what is going to help me to feel more vibrant and more alive and just better all the time.
I'm always learning from it. You watch it, I went through it once, and then I continue to go through it. There's a lot of information, and I can apply it to my life.
Because as a family nurse practitioner, I have considered going the Ayurvedic route. And so for me, it was really nice to have this information at my fingertips and learn more in depth about everything Ayurveda.
I've only gone through it once, and I feel like I need to go through it several times again and reread my notes. This is so much information. That's really changed some things for me from a health perspective as well. I'm very excited about digging deeper and taking the Radiant Body course, which is going to be the next one.